This past Sunday through Tuesday, I was out of town visiting my mom. Most of you know that my mom has Alzheimer's disease. For over 2 years now, I've been traveling up north to Sonoma County about once a month to visit her. And most of you know, for an Alzheimer's patient, my mom is young. She's now 73. Her symptoms started a while ago, maybe about 7 or 8 years ago, and they've progressed relatively slowly. But in the last year, there have been a lot of changes. She's had 2 surgeries, which of course requires anesthesia, which is not great if you have Alzheimer's. She's also recently started a new medication, which has been really helpful, but also really necessary. But really, most significantly, when I interact with her, I can tell things are different. Things are not the same as they used to be even a few months ago. I know that what my mom is going through is confusing for her. What I started to realize this week is how confusing it is for me. For those of you who are not as familiar as I am with the experience of traveling between Los Angeles and Sonoma County, it's theoretically a 90-minute plane flight. So travel time via air, if we start the clock when I step into the car on the way to LAX, and stop the clock when I step out of the car at my sister's house, that's 5 hours if everything goes well. The problem is, sometimes the flights don't run on time. Now, travel time by car is 7 to 8 hours. After a few particularly frustrating recent experiences traveling by air, I've been traveling more frequently by car. It doesn't really take that much longer, and it's a lot more predictable. So, what do you do during the car ride? Well, this past Tuesday on the drive back home, I did something I haven't done before. I found a podcast that's all about Alzheimer's disease education. It's based out of the University of South Florida, and it's hosted by Eileen Poiley. And I listened to 7 hours of Alzheimer's podcasts the entire ride home. It was actually a really wonderful experience for me. It was like going to an all-day education retreat from the comfort of my car. And as I listened, it was like I finally heard a logical explanation of all that my sister and I have been through in the past 2 years. Having my extremely confusing experience explained to me by a patient and knowledgeable professional was really calming and really comforting. Today is Shabbat Nachamu, our Shabbat of comfort. This is the first Shabbat in a 7-week series, and each of the Haftarot for these 7 weeks explores themes of comfort. There is a traditional Aramaic name for these Shabbatot, Shiva de Nechamata, literally meaning 7 of comfort. Rabbi Beryl Wine has innovated a new name. I have to admit I like it better, the comfort zone. For me this year, this time on our Jewish calendar is like the best ever. 7 weeks of comfort in a row? Sign me up. What do I have to do to get on this list? I guess I'm in a season of my life where comfort means more to me than it used to. I have more responsibilities than I used to, different responsibilities than I expected to have. If comfort is available, I'll gladly accept the support. Just a couple days ago, Wednesday night into Thursday, we observed the holiday of Tisha B'Av, the Jewish day of sadness. This year, more than any in the past, I felt this holiday as a pivot point and a gateway into a new beginning. In the depths of sadness, when all the worst has happened, if you're at the very bottom of the pit of despair, if you keep going, there's nowhere to go but up. On Tisha B'Av, our holy temple was destroyed. We were exiled from our holy land. We didn't know it at the time, but we would be exiled for literally 2,000 years. And amazingly, remarkably, in the despair of exile, we had a type of renewal. We wrote the Talmud, we invented rabbis, we invented prayer services with a siddur and a cantor. We created Judaism as we know it and as we live it today. Going into the pit of despair, acknowledging that in the normal course of life, the worst possible thing can happen, allows us to be honest, fully honest with ourselves and one another. It prepares us to receive comfort. Some of us gathered here on Thursday on Tisha B'Av to study the book of Job. On Tisha B'Av, studying Torah is generally avoided, but studying sad sections of the Torah is permitted. Reading the story of Job is difficult. As one of my students remarked, it is dark. but in a way, it's true to life. This week, I happened to have a conversation with someone who told me the story of his family, and specifically of his father's father, who studied in Poland at a yeshiva until the rabbi graduated him. Time to stop studying and live fully in the world. Now, of course, that meant he'd be drafted by the army, and before he knew it, he was fighting in World War I. He barely survived and made it home, only to experience anti-Semitism from his fellow war veterans and pogroms in his community. Forget it, he said. He moved to America. But meanwhile, all the rest of his family stayed in Poland. Moving to America was considered too great a risk of assimilating away from the Jewish community. Soon, World War II began, the Holocaust began, and all his family who stayed in Poland were murdered in the Holocaust. In America, he happened to marry and have 4 children, but his wife fell ill when she was in her early 40s. He lived a very, very bitter life. And this is a real-life story. It's basically a version of the book of Job. Essentially, in the book of Job, he loses everything just like this man lost almost everything. Yet in this real-life story, there were new chapters of renewal. This man who lived a bitter life had 4 children. In time, he had 11 grandchildren and 28 great-grandchildren. Almost all of these descendants are deeply connected to the Jewish community, going to yeshiva, starting families of their own, raising their children to the blessings of Torah, marriage, and a life of good deeds. So yes, life can be bitter. That's normal. And life can be beautiful, can bring blessing and renewal and comfort, and that's normal too. This week for Shabbat Nachamu, we read Parashat Va'etchanan, which contains 2 of the Torah's most core texts, most essential texts, the Shma and the 10 Commandments. These texts are so fundamental to who we are that they practically are who we are. They show up everywhere. Just seeing reminders of them brings us comfort. Let me explain. So I mentioned earlier in the service today, I've been taking time recently with our Tefillah committee to look at our Sifrei Torah, our Torah scrolls. And that means I and we have looked at many different Torah mantles, Torah covers, and many different Torah ties or the belts, also called Torah girdles. There's one design that we've seen over and over again on some of these special items. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's got 2 lions, one on each side. They're facing each other. And in between, there's like the 2 columns next to one another, and each column has a list of 5 items in it. Of course, we all know this simple diagram represents the 10 Commandments. And we also see, from how this design is used to adorn a Torah scroll, that this design symbolizes and represents all of Torah. The lions represent the strength of the Jewish people. Taken together, it all illustrates how we, the Jewish people, protect Torah and how Torah is our essence, that we have this closeness at the core, that it is the core of who we are and can never be taken away. This is comfort. This is the essence of comfort. And of course, we have the Shema. The Shema is Judaism's 6-word summary. We have hundreds of commandments, hundreds of mitzvot. We have over 50 Torah portions. We have this concept that the study of Torah is never-ending and ongoing. But we have this 6-word summary. Listen, Israel, our God is one. When I think of the Shema, I think of an experience I had a very long time ago. I went with a friend to a family gathering. I think it was a Shabbat dinner. There were a bunch of little cousins there, including one girl who was about 2 or 3 years old, just old enough to run back and forth across the room and cause a ruckus. And her parents had just taught her the Shema. She was running back and forth around all these grown-ups shouting, Shema Yisrael! It was adorable, and it was profound. Of course, we had this commandment to teach words of Torah to our children, and this was such a clear and adorably ear-splitting illustration of how this is supposed to work. We might think of the Shema as something we say in services, and of course that's true. We say the Shema every day in our morning prayer service and our evening prayer service, but we also say the Shema at bedtime, which we all know is a peak time for comfort. When the hundreds of our mitzvot are overwhelming, when life itself is overwhelming, when we make the transition from the vigilance of wakefulness to the vulnerability of rest, our tradition brings us back to our 6-word summary. Listen, Israel, our God is one. This time of year, the season of comfort, is truly a gift for us. And we don't have to do anything extra to receive this comfort. There are no special obligations or observances. We don't have to put away all our chametz. We don't have to fast. We don't even have to spend extra time in shul. This comfort is just here for us, a precious gift just because it's this time of year. All we have to do is show up. My blessing for us as we move into this season of comfort together is simply for us to show up and receive. May we be present and may we be comforted as we journey together into the season ahead. Shabbat Shalom.